Hello everyone, glad to be back. Today is 11th of June, now it's 11:30, middle of the day by Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update today, in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. Second update will be a little bit late in the afternoon on my Patreon page, and as I always do on Sundays, I will upload informal talks, and in that program I will share additional news that will be reported by Russian media. I will summarize previous week, answer to some questions that I see in comment sections, and if there is no rain outside, it's quite cloudy day. If there is no rain, then I will try to make video footage in the city here in Vladikavkaz, where I am guesting for some time, and I will share that video footage also. I hope subscribers on Patreon will find this update interesting. And by the way, I do regularly some extras on Patreon in an attempt to generate additional interest among our members of our community towards my Patreon page. So I hope you will consider to join my Patreon. It's a major lifeline for this project, so it's very, very important to me and for this channel. That being said, let's talk about news now, and I will start with Ukrainian special military operation. Yesterday afternoon we had first partial confirmation from Kiev, from Zelensky himself, that Ukrainian counteroffensive has begun. He had a joint press conference with the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and during this press conference Zelensky was asked about Ukrainian counteroffensive, and he said that some counteroffensive and defensive operations are taking place, but he is unwilling to go deep inside that topic. Well, as I said, Zelensky was basically forced to at least partially confirm that there is a Ukrainian counteroffensive, and I do understand why he was taking time to admit that counteroffensive has begun, because if there is any defeat of Ukrainian forces, he always can say that there was no counteroffensive, it was just recon operations. But if they will achieve any success, then he will say, just look at it, man, we did promise that we will conduct counteroffensive and we had delivered. Well, counteroffensive is taking place already a week, already 6-7 days, and only now Zelensky is willing to spare a few words about it, and this is once again highlights his approach, his attitude towards Ukrainian soldiers and lives of Ukrainian soldiers, because as we know, according to many sources, during this 5-6 days of active clashes on Zaporozhye front, Ukrainian armed forces lost, by conservative estimates, 4,000 to 5,000 soldiers, and much more was wounded. And of course we all see this many video footage with the total destruction of Ukrainian armored columns, including with Western-made military equipment, armored personal carriers, tanks, and so on. So yes, I mean, Zelensky, we all know very well what kind of individual he is, but still, man, it's unbelievable how less for him means lives of people, man. It's just unbelievable. Let me continue now, and we have reports about situation on the front line, and according to Vladimir Rogov, official from Zaporozhye, he is also leader of We Are Together with Russia NGO, and according to his statements, Ukrainian armed forces are preparing yet another wave of offensives in direction of Zaporozhye front. Well, it's quite understandable, because during previous week, as it was expected, the main direction of Ukrainian offensive operations were exactly the Zaporozhye region, this land bridge between Crimea and mainland Russia. And to summarize previous week, we can say that basically the Ukrainian armed forces failed catastrophically during these offensive operations. They had huge casualties in manpower. They lost hundreds and hundreds of pieces of military equipment. And if we are taking in account all the losses in manpower and military equipment, probably we will be right if we will say that just in 1 week of this local scale offensive operations on Zaporozhye front, Ukraine lost about 3 brigades. So yes, they have left about 10-15 brigades still as a strategic reserve, and most of these brigades are located in Zaporozhye and Kherson area, some of them in Kryvyi Rog and Dnipropetrovsk regions. But yet again, if they lost 3 brigades already, I don't think they will be able to sustain this kind of high level of losses for more than 2-3 weeks, really. And they are achieving basically nothing. As I said, from very beginning, Ukrainian counteroffensive, anticipated by many Ukrainian counteroffensive, will be suicidal mission for Ukrainian armed forces and for Zelensky's regime itself. And exactly this is happening. And by the way, when it comes to latest news, in Orekhovo direction, Russian forces did repel all offensive movements of Zelensky's regime, but in direction of this bridgehead that Russia has made between Uglidar and Gulyai-Polye, Ukrainian forces once again conduct offensive in direction of Niskuchne, this settlement here, and Russian forces did make decision to withdraw from Niskuchne to avoid any risk of being encircled in this small settlement. And once again, and right now, Niskuchne, second time for a week, is under control of Ukrainian forces. Maybe during the day, Russian forces will again conduct counteroffensive and retake control over the Niskuchne, but for now, for this moment, it's Ukrainian forces that are controlling this settlement, or we can say it's in gray zone. But this development definitely highlights difference in approach between Ukrainian armed forces and Russian armed forces, because Ukrainian units usually are trying to hold on to their positions before very last of them are standing. And this is basically, it's too obvious that this tactic is not really working for Ukrainian armed forces. They are losing immense amount of soldiers and military equipment, and Bakhmut or Artyomovsk was a huge example of that. And the Russian side do use against Ukraine this Ukrainian tactic, because Russian side knows they will try to hold on to territories, and that's why Russian side PMC Wagner was able to create kind of trap from Bakhmut or Artyomovsk, and now, as I understand, Russian side is trying to do exactly the same in Avdiivka. But when it comes to Russian approach very much different. It's much more flexible, and when operational situation is dictating necessity to withdraw, Russian side does exactly that. There is no need to hold on to any territory by any means necessary, because you can always regain control over any area when it's just impossible to bring to life killed soldiers. So approach between two armies are very different, and yet again this withdrawal of Russian forces from Niskuchne highlights this perfectly well. And as I said, maybe during the day Russian forces will conduct counteroffensive and regain control over this area, but when it comes to overall situation on the Zaporozhye front line, as I said, Ukrainian forces failed catastrophically because they were unable to even breach first line of defense of Russian army. in this area. And to be honest, I don't know. I hope someone in general staff of Ukraine has enough courage and understanding to hold all these offensive movements, because, as I said, it will be suicidal mission for Ukrainian brigades. If they cannot breach even first line, what will happen after that? Russian side will just neutralize entire these last reserves that Zelensky's regime has, isn't it? So probably even though Vladimir Rogov, this official from Zaporozhye, is saying that Ukrainian forces are preparing to to begin another wave of offensive operations in Zaporozhye frontline, I think maybe we will see some operational pause for a day or two, because Ukraine's general staff definitely needs some time to to come to their senses and realize that they are losing badly, very badly, in this counteroffensive. And by the way, there are some reports that Ukrainian forces are starting now, trying at least to change their tactics. They are no longer using these huge armored columns. They are trying to act more like with more smaller units, and conduct maneuverable warfare to flank Russian forces, and don't attack on the on the front with frontal assault. But yet again, I guess Russian side is ready for any kind of development on the front line. Russian forces had many months to prepare for this Ukrainian counteroffensive that was announced, I don't know, 6 months ago or 7 months ago, which is on its own quite unusual stuff. But yes, when it comes to overall situation, Russian defense lines are holding, and I guess we will see some operational pause on the front line for at least for a day or two, because Ukrainian forces do need to get some reinforcements, and do need some rest, forces that are operating on the front line. And by the way, according to military doctrines, once unit will lose 30 to 40% of its capacities, military equipment or manpower, that unit is out of order. That unit is unable to conduct any successful operation. So that's why I think that these brigades that were on the front line maybe will be withdrawn, and Zelensky's regime will send some other brigades. And maybe, if that's the case, maybe we will see destroyed Challenger 2 tanks now. We did see destroyed Leopard tanks and Bradley armored personnel carriers, and if Zelensky's regime will send new brigades on the front line, it's quite possible that we will now see destroyed Challengers also. And when it comes to overall situation on the front line, as I said, Donetsk direction is quite active. Ukrainian forces are trying to hold on to this small area on the western part of Marinka, and they are constantly sending reinforcements. That's what I just said a few minutes ago. This tactic for Ukrainian forces are not working, but they are continuing to do exactly that. They are sending more and more forces in Russian traps, and same is happening in Avdiivka direction, like it was in Bakhmut for many months, or Artyomovsk. So there are heavy clashes in Donetsk direction. Ukrainian forces did try to conduct offensive operations on the flanks of Artyomovsk or Bakhmut. There were some reports that Ukrainian forces are sending their reserves from Kramatorsk to Chisov Yar direction, maybe to escalate situation on the flanks of Bakhmut. But yet again, yesterday, for example, I did share video footage on my Telegram where you can clearly see that this Ukrainian column, mechanized column, is destroyed in just a couple of minutes. Russian side did, Russian recon groups did see movement of Ukrainian column, and then it was just a matter of time, and Russian artillery and kamikaze drones did neutralize that column. So I don't think they have any real chance to achieve any serious success. And there was heavy clashes also in Seversk direction in Belogorovka. This area is constantly a hot point, and because of difficult terrain here, no one side is able for quite a while now to establish full control over this settlement. And there was some activity also in Kupiansk direction, but nothing in the scale of clashes that we see week ago or about 10 days ago, when the Ukrainian side actively was using this bridgehead here to shell Belgorod region of Russian Federation. So for now, overall situation on the front line is more or less stable. Same we can say about Zaporozhye front line, and I guess it will stay this way at least for a day or two, because Ukrainian brigades that were participating in these offensive operations are destroyed. They have to be replaced by new brigades, and it will definitely take some time, maybe 2 days, maybe 3 days. So it will be some operational pause, I guess. After all, I'm not military expert, and I can be mistaken. Let me continue now with some other news, and we have a statement from governor of Kaluga region, Vladislav Shapsha, who said that 2 Ukrainian drones were found crushed basically in forested areas of the region. There was no casualties on the ground and no damage was done, but yet again you can clearly see that Zelensky's regime is trying to use any opportunity they have to strike deep inside Russian territory, and they don't really care where these drones that they are launching will strike. They just don't care, man. And by the way, in Belgorod region this morning, in early hours of the morning, one train derailed with the 15 cars, and according to officials from Belgorod, there was no casualties. But railway operations will be suspended in close range from border with Ukraine, which is obvious decision, because even though investigation is taking place right now and we don't have official statements yet, I am quite sure it was sabotage of Ukraine from Ukrainian side. So it's truly dangerous to operate a railway in that area. Let me continue now. This is TASS News Agency's report, which is based on statements from Rosenergoatom, Russian state company that operates nuclear power stations. And according to Rosenergoatom, more than 100 attempts to strike Zaporozhye nuclear power plant with drones were prevented by Russian side. More than 100 attempts, just imagine. And this was done by Russian air defense systems and Russian radio electronic warfare systems. It's hard to imagine if all these 100 attempts will, was successful and if they were managed to strike Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. This fact itself just unimaginable, and the Ukrainian side is intentionally shelling nuclear power plant. How mad is that, man? I mean, it's just, I don't know, man. Let me continue, and hopefully these power plants are built greatly, and as I understand, reactors have multiple layers of defense, and it's not that easy to damage reactors there. But still, man, fact itself that Zelensky's regime constantly trying to hit nuclear power plant does speaks volume, isn't it? Let me continue. This is RIA Novosti's report about creation of 2 more units, special purpose units in Chechen Republic, Ahmad Rossiya and Ahmad Chechnya, and these special forces in coming days will be also sent to frontline, like all other Ahmad special forces are. And I did share on my Telegram channel video of that units. They are well equipped, well trained, and I guess they are very well prepared to achieve any targets that they will have. Let me continue now, and this is quite interesting. TASS news agency is reporting that Chancellor of Germany, Scholz, did made statement that he plans to talk to Putin in foreseeable future, and he did mention that he was having conversation with Putin before special military operation began, after special military operation began, and he thinks it's necessary to stay in touch, especially in these difficult times, and he plans to make some phone call to Moscow. But yesterday, after this statement, spokesperson of Russian President Dmitry Peskov did comment on this information and said that Putin has no plans to speak with Scholz. If Scholz will call, Putin will probably answer, will take a call. But to be honest, I don't see point in talking to Scholz, because I mean, he's not an independent politician, isn't it? He does whatever he is told from Washington and I guess from London. So it will be better for Moscow to talk directly to masters of Scholz and the rest of these so-called elites in Europe. It will be better to talk directly to Washington and London about European affairs, because these people like Scholz and Macron and this Italian Prime Minister, for example, they don't make any true decisions, isn't it? They are basically spokespersons of elites in Washington and London, in US and UK. But fact itself is, yes, interesting. Let me continue. And by the way, Dmitry Medvedev, deputy chairman of Russian Security Council and former president of Russian Federation, continues to troll Western elites, and this time he did react on information that Rheinmetall, German, huge German company in military-industrial complex that are producing, for example, Leopard 2 tanks. Also, this company, Rheinmetall, announced that they will build a tank factory in Ukraine in foreseeable future, and Medvedev did comment on it and said, give us the coordinates where you are planning to build that factory. Well, at this stage, yes, what else you gonna do, man? You cannot take seriously Western elites, and even high-ranking Russian officials are time to time, especially Medvedev, are time to time are trolling now Western elites because yes, you cannot talk to them seriously. You cannot take them seriously. I mean, what Rheinmetall leadership is thinking? Where they gonna build factory, man? What factory? Are they out of their mind, or what is wrong with them, man? Do they read news? Do they understand what is going on in Ukraine? It's too stupid, really. How you can comment seriously on this kind of statements that they will build a tank factory in Ukraine? Really? Maybe in your dreams, though. Let me continue, and once again, example of how out of touch with reality these so-called representatives of Western elites are. This time we have statement from Foreign Ministry of Italy, for example, and Antonio Tajani, who is a foreign minister and vice premier of Italy, said that during next NATO summit, Ukraine will receive some roadmap how to join NATO. And once again, how are these people even serious, man? I mean, question is rising: do these high-ranking officials in European states are capable of some complex thinking? Because all this topic of Ukraine joining NATO is madness. Ukraine will never join NATO in no circumstances. It's just impossible, and I don't really understand why these so-called elites in the West are constantly manipulating with this topic. I don't know, man. And that's why it's difficult, man. How you gonna? This person is foreign minister of Italy. I mean, very important position, isn't it? And if this person is so stupid that he is not understand, it's he, isn't it? Antonio, probably it's he. So, is he so stupid that don't really understand that Ukraine will never join NATO? Does he knows chapters of NATO organization itself, according to which no country can join this alliance if it has some territorial disputes or are involved in conflict? So as I said, man, after this conflict, Ukraine as a state will not even exist. So, and during the conflict, Ukraine cannot join NATO because of rules of NATO itself. So that's why I find it very strange, man, that they are constantly talking about this this topic when it's too clear that there is no way Ukraine can become NATO member. Let me continue, and this is TASS News Agency's report about the decision of Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, to confiscate Russian AN-124 transport plane, and according to Trudeau's decision, this plane will be given to Ukraine. Well, that's a theft. They are stealing basically Russian property. And at this stage, I'm not really surprised. I'm not really surprised. What saddens me is that 5-7 years ago, to be honest, I was thinking Canada is one of the greatest countries in this world. And I was truly thinking that I was quite sure that law and order and human rights and freedom of speech are protected in Canada better than anywhere on this planet. And unfortunately, this individual, Trudeau, in very few years, man, destroyed, in my opinion, destroyed everything that was great about Canada. And as Canadians, man, I did read many comments, citizens of Canada, and they are shocked what Canada had become under leadership of Trudeau and his associates. They cannot recognize their own country. It seems like, I don't know, this Trudeau is acting like some kind of emperor there, and no one has any rights in Canada, and now state itself, under leadership of Trudeau, acting as a cheap criminal and stealing assets of other countries. It's just too shameful, man. I mean, it's unbelievable, though. Unbelievable. Let me continue now, and this is Artie's few more news, and this is Artie's report about statements that one of the leading experts in Russian banking system, CEO of VTB, state-run bank, Andrei Kostin, said. And basically, this article is about process of de-dollarization, which is taking place right now and increasing in its speed. And according to Kostin, current situation in the world basically are forcing many countries, especially outside of Western world, to distance themselves from dollar, US dollar, and from euro. And in a situation when China is moving towards removal of strict currency policies, Chinese yuan is becoming more and more significant currency in trade relationships between the nations. And yes, I did report many times before that Chinese yuan and some other currencies also are gaining popularity worldwide. And it's quite understandable because Washington is clearly using, and Brussels also, they are using dollar and euro as a weapon. So countries all around the world are basically forced to distance themselves from dollar and euro. I guess for example, right now, even according to IMF, International Monetary Fund, share of dollar in global reserves are at lowest point for last 28 years, which says much, isn't it? And I guess in 5 to 10 years time, dollar will probably lose its dominance in the world. It's already losing little by little. And in 5-10 years time, probably some other currency will become main reserve currency for this world. Maybe it will be Chinese yuan, or maybe BRICS countries will come up some other currency that will be used in trade between BRICS member states. And as a result, because of influence of BRICS, then this currency will probably be used in trade relationships between all the other countries outside of Western world. Let's see, but the dollarization is definitely taking place, and well, it's not really good news for US, ordinary US citizens, because in 5 to 10 years time, dollar will probably become dollar will have much less value than it has now. And this is gonna be last news for today, which is about sport once again. And I want to congratulate all the fans of Manchester City, this great football team, which has become which has won Champions League final, and they defeat Inter from Italy, from Milan. So, well, great news for fans of Manchester City. I used to support Barcelona, and before that I used to support Ajax. I never support British clubs, really, even though they have great clubs like Manchester City, Manchester United, Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, just you name it. UK has one of the best football clubs in the world, and great history, of course. And yes, I congratulate all the fans of Manchester City with this victory. A great achievement for sure. And this is it for now. I hope you will find this video interesting, and if so, please please hit that like button, leave some commentary about any topic you like, and if you can, please share links to my videos or my channel with your friends on Telegram, Twitter, Facebook, or any other platform that you are active on. That should help me deal with the algorithm of YouTube and reach wider audience. And if you think this channel is interesting, informative, and deserves to exist, please consider to support with small donations through PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. You will see links under this video in the description box. Well, this is it for now. I hope you have a great weekend. I wish you a great day today and a successful upcoming new week. Take care and see you soon.